All right, I am so excited today. I have a new friend with me, Trisha Mounts. Am I saying that right?
You are. You are.
Okay. We met through a group that we're both part of, a really incredible group, Christian Podcast. Is it Christian Podcasters or Podcasters for Christians? I can never remember which way it
It's
goes.
Christian podcasters. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Christian
It's a
Podcasters.
yes.
Yeah. So, which is, I
Yeah.
would say, filled with so many fire starters. So, I want to hand it over to you and give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners. All of the women listening are ordinary women like you and I,
Yes.
who are most likely sitting with a deep, deep calling in their heart and they want to step out and follow that calling. And I know today meeting you is going to help them do that. So, go ahead and tell us about you.
Well, thank you, first of all, so much for having me, Hillary. I am so excited to be sharing my story with everybody. My name is Trisha, as you mentioned. I am a grandmother of many, so therefore I have children, wife of an awesome husband, and I am an author, a podcaster, and a public speaker. I recently got into this direction from God very recently within the last year. So I am like probably one of those girls that everybody's going to be like, oh, wow, she's really like me. So
I love
everyone
it.
should be able to relate to my story.
I absolutely love that. Okay, so then that leads me right into my favorite question that I always love to start with is tell me about the last time that you heard God call you to step out of the boat, so to speak, and follow him.
Sure. Sure. That is such an awesome question. And a lot of people have big stories. A lot of people have these stories in their lives where things happen to them and they change them. They change them for the good. And my story is one of so much excitement, fear,
Mm.
and a deeper connection to God than I ever expected possible. I was in 2019 in a really terrible car accident. I was hit by a tow truck and I ended up in a 12-foot deep ravine. And theoretically, I don't believe I should have lived through that. There was just a mountain of miracles that I believe God had to put in place in order for me to live through that experience. At the end, I was actually still in the hospital at the time where God says, "I need you to share this story."
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what that looks like." And I was like, and so this is 2019, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm really new to this. So he said, "I need you to write the story. I need you to write a book." And I had always wanted to write a book since as far back as fourth grade when Miss Passwater told me, "Hey, Trisha, you're going to be a great author someday." And I thought, well, I probably wrote like a paragraph or something, but that was something that stuck with me. So in my mind, someday I was going to be a writer. And I kept telling myself I really didn't have anything to write about.
Mhm.
So I would write and I'd put it down and I'd write and I'd put it down. And my friend at one point said, "Hey, let's do a podcast together." And I said, "Great. I can serve God in that way. God will release me from the book writing, right?
Mm.
And I'll just do this with her." And I enjoy doing that with her, but the whole time God was just pushing me and doing that little tap on my shoulder going, "It's time. It's time." Um 4th of July last year, my mother and I are sitting across the table. My now 81-year-old mother who um, had been recently diagnosed with reoccurring metastatic breast cancer. It was in her bones. And
Mm.
she says, "Do you think you'll get your book done before I die?"
Oh,
Yeah.
Trisha.
Right? And you're like, ow. Like, so I said, "Well, um, okay, I'll see what I
Yeah.
can do about that." Right. So I started praying. I was like, "Okay, God, if I'm really, really supposed to finish this book, I need time." Because I have a grandchild I'm still taking. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter that lives with me full time. So that is a lot. And I have a full-time job and I have, all these other things that I just don't have the time, God. So immediately he said, quit your job. And I said, oh, I don't know. I have a really cushy job, God. I don't know if that fits into my life right now. And I said, how about if we come up with a different direction? So I continue to pray about it. Every time it comes up, it's quit your job, quit your job. So I went to my Bible study group and I said, hey, I got a real problem. I need some clarity. God is definitely telling me I need to quit my job. And my husband's sitting there going, we're just like,
I don't hear that. I don't hear that.
Definitely not hearing it. He's very supportive. He's like, if that's what God's leading us, then that's the direction we need to go. So literally less than 24 hours later, I got a phone call from the CEO of my department telling me I was part of 20% layoffs. That was in August of last year.
So sometimes God asks us to step out of the boat. And when we don't, he just kicks us right on out.
So technically, Hillary, I never stepped out of the boat. I got kicked out of the boat.
Okay.
But I was very well prepared to get out of that boat. You know what I'm saying? He had definitely given me the preparation, because as the CEO is telling me, Trish, I'm really sorry, I just laughed and laughed and laughed. And he's like, well, you're the first one I've had to call that laughed at me. And I said, I'll probably be the last one, because I was expecting this call. And I genuinely was, because I knew God had a plan. He had been preparing me for nearly 5 years to write this book. And here I was putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. So I immediately got to work on, because I am a go-getter. I'm like so many women. We love to have our plates spinning like 90 miles an hour. We got so many things we want to do, right? And your heart is in the right place, but sometimes it's scary. And this leap of faith that I've taken has been absolutely so rewarding in so many ways. Like just being able to meet you, Hillary, is just rewarding. Just getting these opportunities to share my story. And so I finished the book in record time. I got a coach who helped me do it. I got it done by December of 2023. It was in print by January. And I'm like, well, there you go, God. You're welcome. I did what I was supposed to do. I'm going to go back to doing my comfort zone, if that's all right with you.
Right?
And
immediately.
I'm like, I did what I was supposed to do. I'm good, right? I can go back into that little bubble of comfort. And because I'm like, part of the story continues with the fact that back in June, I had been in a situation where I was having a lot of medical issues, and I was in and out of the hospital, and I was going to need surgery. And so my boss at the time said, hey, maybe you should go on short-term disability till you can get this figured out. So a week before I got let go, I was put on short-term disability. So I literally got paid by my company to write my book.
I love that. Thank you, Lord.
Right? Because yes, amen. It was all God driven. It was such a neat experience. So then come January, I'm like, okay, all of my medical is I no longer have medical. Okay. Now I'm really out of the boat. I'm really out of that comfort zone, because I'm not working. I have zero income coming in, but I've done what I was supposed to do. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. And God goes, oh, it was almost like I heard audible laughter, Hillary. It was like God was like, you're so cute.
You really
we're just getting started. We're just getting started, sister. We got so much more for you to do. So I started researching different ways to, again, no income. So there is that absolute terrifying fear of what am I supposed to do for money? How am I supposed to survive? All of those feelings that we, of course, experience when we are stepping out in faith, because it is a major undertaking to have that kind of trust in God. And so I wouldn't say it was a daily thing, but it was pretty regular, where I would be like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. This is so terrifying. How am I going to make bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? God has continued to provide for me and my family without question. Without question. It's just, I literally got something in the mail today saying, or not today, but last week saying, I should have a $3,500 check coming. I'm like, for what? I mean, it's just that kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's that,
Yeah.
and it's coming from the bank that I worked for, you know, that I no longer work for, just ridiculous. And I also got like, severance and this, and I mean, just crazy money just randomly showing up because God is a provider, right?
He
So
is.
I could I could keep talking, or you can ask me another question because I could just keep going on and on and on about how awesome God is.
Well, no, but it's funny that you say that. You could ask me a question. You've gone through like four of my questions just through. But that is by design because I have found these patterns where he calls us to step out. Some of us
Yes.
do, some of us don't, and we get kicked out. It happens every time. You will get kicked
Yep.
out of the boat. And
Yep.
then there is unsurety and doubt after the obedience and a desire to go back to comfort. You said
Yes.
it. I've heard it
Yep.
before. These are
Yep.
threads that I've heard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he says, "No, I've called you higher. We've gone to
Mhm.
level 1 and you thought that that was a big deal, but there's actually like a million levels and you never
Yeah.
stop. But I am going to be your provider through all
Yeah.
of them."
All of it. All of it. Yep.
So, as I was listening, I'm curious your friends and your family, their reaction to your decision to go this direction and to continue to obey him. What have they spoken into your life? Has it been easy, supportive, or
It has all been it has been really God driven, to be honest. There's of course that fear of what are people going to think?
Mhm.
Obviously um I'm not everybody. My walk is different than yours. My walk is always going to be my walk and my walk alone. So I didn't ever have a lot of fear about what people would think as much as I thought I would. However, my friends and my family, I might tear up on this one because they have been so supportive. Every last one of them have been like, you are an inspiration, not something negative. So it's been really fun to see. I've had people come up to me and go, I see a difference in you.
Mm.
So that is huge, like a positive direction. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink so I don't cry more.
No, hey, crying is, if you know me at all, I cry all the time. Well,
Girl,
and
the
that
older I get, I cry about everything.
I
Everything.
people who know me are going to laugh as they listen to this and are like, "Oh, Trisha, friend, Hillary cries all the time." All
My
the
new best
time.
friend.
I
Yeah,
I know your podcast is about growing deeper with Christ. So I have to ask this. Do you
how did I get
believe
there?
that that in our obedience to step towards him and to obey him, is that a way to deepen your relationship with him?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the more obedient we are, the deeper we're going to get.
Mhm.
The more time I went from, doing a daily job. I was a real estate appraiser for 27 years. I loved what I did. And I had my God time, but now, today, my God time is God time. I mean, I am
Right.
like always doing God, and it makes life so much more enjoyable. And it brings me to this deeper relationship with him because I'm involved with him on a date, not only just a work. I mean, obviously you don't want to, you still need to have your God time.
Right.
You still need to be focusing on your alone time in your prayer closet, in my case, I don't pray in my closet. I pray in my bed before I get up. I mean, if I don't start my day with God, just me and him, then I tend to find my day does not go very well. But
Amen.
I'm still doing God all day because I'm involved in connecting with people, and I am sharing stories, and I'm creating memes or things like that. Anything that I'm doing is creating my connection is growing deeper to God. Speaking of the podcast, that's where I ended up after months of me saying, okay, God, what do? I went to conferences. I joined Propel Women, which is a mentorship program offered by Christine Kane. And I have a photo of me and Christine Kane. I had my arm around her and everything. Yeah, me.
I would love that.
Super great. Yeah, it really is a neat organization, neat mentorship program. A lot of depth is coming from that for me. A lot of spiritual formation is coming from that for me. A lot of kinship and relationships as well with other women. But during that time, I was like, okay, God, I'm in this, I'm doing that, but I still don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm just sitting in prayer, and everybody, that is when I started seeing people going, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm praying. And they're like, okay, praying's not going to make any money. So how long are you going to do that for? And I'm like, I don't know, until God answers my prayers, because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And sitting in that was probably one of the scariest places, because I'm like, I am a do plate spinning, remember? So without the plate spinning, I'm like, I'm just like at this place of total, like, okay, I need something. I have to have something to do. So I was like, God, please, and I'm like, I just give me something. And when I said, give me something, I roll over, because I'm praying in bed, and I roll over, and there on the floor is a sock. And God says, socks. And I was like, I'm doing socks? You want me to make socks? What does that mean? And he said, sisters open to Christ's kindred spirit. And when I heard that, it was huge for me, because my book is titled Ephatha, How to Be Open to God's Miracles. And Ephatha means be open. So the concept of openness was what God was giving me through my podcast, through my speeches, through my book. It's all intertwined with the openness. So being open to God, and open to a deeper connection to Christ. And it was so cool. So I was like, ooh, I like that, God. That's nice. What am I supposed to do with socks? What am I supposed to do with that? So he goes, well, we're going to start. Initially, I thought I was going to be like this big public speaker on this stage, right next to Christine Kane, of course, because that's what everybody thinks. You're going to be the next Joyce Meyer or something. And God was like, I want you to stay where you are. You don't need to be running off to all these big conferences and doing all. You have a place right where you're at. You can sit at your desk and do it like you've always done it your whole life. Because I work from home for the most part, and like I'm a pajamas wearer. Like I wear pajama pants. I mean, I might look a little, I don't really look business on top right now, but I am always going to be nap on bottom.
Yes.
So, I was like, I don't really want to be all fancy on a stage necessarily. But I knew that was part of reaching people. So when he said, I prepared you already with the podcast with Dana, which was my friend. And I was like, oh. So Socks, Sisters Open to Christ, Kindred Spirit was born from that. And originally I was like, I'm going to take it easy. I'm only going to do 1 or 2 like a month. And I mean, I have so much content and so many great relationships that have formed just in the short period of time that I've been doing this, that I've already gone to weekly. And I'm just enjoying it immensely. And the entrepreneurial aspect of it, the money-making aspect of it, is I am now considered the scripture sock lady. So with each episode, I'm producing purchasable socks that people can wear based on the title of the socks episode. And then whoever I am having on as someone who is my guest, they get to choose the Bible verse that's on the bottom of the socks. So you'll always be standing on the Word of God.
Oh my gosh, always be standing on the Word of God. That gives me chills.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah. So it was just, I mean, it's not like this major, financial endeavor necessarily at present, but I see God at work in it. Mm-hmm. And I have a lady who makes my socks for me, and she goes, how you doing? I said, it doesn't matter how I'm doing. I mean, I'm just being faithful. and faithful in the little and focusing on what, the direction God has me going. And someday, as long as I have the peace, it's going to work out just great. So that's
Yes.
where we're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So many things as I was listening.
Oh, I'm
One,
sure.
I love that. I mean, we are very similar people, Trisha. We don't know each other that well yet, but we will, friend. We will. I
Well,
love to
good,
have
good.
my plate spinning as well. I love to have my
Yes.
plate spinning. I just got through a desert season where I just had to be still. Very
Yes.
uncomfortable. Very
Very.
uncomfortable. I was crawling in my own skin. But
Mhm.
it did create an intimacy between me and the Lord that I have
Yeah.
never known before. And I think there's something to be said about, for years I spent time in the Word, and I needed to just learn the Word. I came to faith late. I needed just the
Mhm.
quiet time. But there
Mhm.
comes a point where you can know Proverbs 3:5, you can know, but then
Right.
when are you going to live it? When are you going to really get to
Right.
know who your God is? And it's stepping out of the
Yes.
boat. It's going and doing those things and
Yes.
realizing he is faithful. Oh, the Bible said he's faithful. Now I'm experiencing his faithfulness, you know?
Yes.
And I love how you say how busy you are. You've been faithful in your busyness. I think if you take that faithfulness and that busyness, you can 100% say you are fruitful. You are
Yes.
fruitful, Trisha. That is what you are. You are fruitful. You're
Thank
bearing
you.
fruit for the Lord.
Thank
And that inspires me. That ignites me. It gives me
you. Good.
hope because
Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm not at the, I'm not monetizing my passions at the present,
Yeah.
but I am trusting him that if he's called me to it, there is a daily manna when you are
Yes.
depending on the Lord. I love how you said like you're living God now. That
Yes.
resonated in my heart so much
Yes.
when I heard you say that because
Good.
I'm depending
Good.
on his daily manna. And so that
Yes.
makes me so absolutely aware of him at all times. I still have my quiet time every morning. I'm like you too. I have to start with him or the day's not going to go
Mhm.
well. I'm not going to show up well. But then just daily life, everything that I do, he's right there with me. And I'm so aware of him because I am leaning on him so
Mhm.
heavily and trusting
Yes.
him so heavily. I love that you mentioned the resource of, you said Propel Women, Christine Cain's
Yes.
ministry.
Yes.
I hadn't heard of that because I was going to ask
Yes.
you what resources you would recommend women to step into. But before I do that, because you already mentioned Propel, I want to go back and ask this question because you have your 6-year-old granddaughter with you. So, one of the questions I love to
Yes.
ask, I struggle with this: how do you balance your personal life, being a wife and a grandma and a mom and a friend and a Bible study friend, with your commitment to God's calling?
So that is a very good question. And I think because plate spinning is something that comes natural for me,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't difficult for me to spin all the plates. In fact, I'm the kind of person who revels in it. Like I am just like, let's go, I like, bring it on. So do I get exhausted from doing it that way? Yes, I do. And so I make sure that I take at least one day where and because that is biblical,
Mm-hmm.
we are supposed to rest.
Yes.
So I have chosen to always take at least one day, and it's not always Sunday, I got to be honest, but there is always one day where I do not do anything work related, podcast related, sock related, book related, speaking related, any of that. I put it
Mm-hmm.
down, even though I'm saying to myself, well, it's still about God. So I'm not really, am I really working? Because I like to try to there for a while, I was justifying it because it was God time, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so I have made a conscious effort to once a week, one day, 24 hours, I do not pick any of it up. And I devote that to spending quality time with the people that I love because it's important that they still get me. I just got done doing a Christine Cain Don't Look Back Bible study at my house. And that was super fun for me because it was, and I've done a couple of Bible studies over the years. I've led plenty of them, but this one was big for me because it was kind of trying to throw another thing on the plate, you know? So it was another thing that I was like, okay, I want to spend as much time as I can with God, because the more time I spend with him, the closer I get, that deeper connection I get, the more I realize the need for continuously serving him.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy to get sidetracked by the world, because Satan is, at work in all of our lives, trying so hard to infiltrate, especially when we're stepping out in such a huge leap of faith.
Yes.
So that particular painful mess that, you will experience if you don't do it the way I'm not saying you have to do it the way I'm doing it, but if you don't give God your 24 hours and have that rest as is prescribed by the top 10,
Yes.
then you're probably going to have difficulties. So my experience has been, when I am faithful in that 24 hours, and he just multiplies my time in other places.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, my family is still seeing me serving God in a way that not only lifts him up, but encourages them, because they're getting quality time with me.
Yes. That leads me to ask this question. You kind of hit on it, but one of the things that I have a hard time with is discerning God's voice from my own. I'm a go, go, go. I get an idea. I'm like, yes, let's do that. And let's do that. So how do you discern God's voice from your own, and even from the world? And I'm going to say spouses specifically, because
Sure.
you and I are in similar situations where we're trusting the Lord for our finances, which is challenging
Scary.
sometimes for
Yes.
husbands.
Yes.
So how do you discern God's voice from all the others?
So, a couple of things. One, and this is my biggest go-to, is I have to hear from God 3 times. I am a stubborn woman, and I need 3 definites from him that says, yes, yes, and yes, this is what you're supposed to do. And a lot of times it's just, but again, that goes back to being open to the Holy Spirit in your life. Okay.
Right,
Because if you're not open, you're not seeing those cues from God. You're
right.
missing out on all the blessings that you could be receiving from him, because you're not hearing from him.
Mm,
So I have to literally hear from him 3 times. And it could be something simple like a thought in my head. Okay, that's 1. It could be something on television. That could be 2. It could be something someone else says. It could be, I literally had a Amazon truck drive by, and I was like, well, that's number 3. So there are things, you just have to be open to seeing God at work in your life, and he will be speaking to you through things constantly. He wants that deeper relationship with you. He wants that connection with you. And so when you are looking for it, when you're being open to it, it's everywhere. It's constantly in your life. So
yes.
that's, to me, my number 1. When it comes to finances and faithfulness and my spouse, he has been really awesome. In fact, I'm really the one who worries more about, and it's funny because I'm the one who is stepping out. But God placed me with a man, God love him, that is so fly by the seat of his pants. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't care. So I said, so like when I say things to him about how I'm stressed out about the money, or how I'm worried about this, and he said, did God provide us with a house?
Mm,
Do we have a roof over our head? I'm like, yeah. And he said, are our lights on? I said, yeah. And do we have food in our bellies? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what else do we need? So that statement has just resonated with me. So it has helped me to not worry, because I am taken care of. And I am so better off than so many people in this world, Hillary. I mean, I still have everything God has given me and then some since I stepped out. So why do I need to keep worrying? So it is a scary thing. And I did it again. um,
I love it.
yeah. Oh, girl, you got me all teary eyed today. Um, but it really, it has helped me to continuously remind myself of that I might not have it all together, but God does.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that he cares more about us than the birds in the sky,
Yes.
and the flowers in the grass. So why do we worry so much about it? Because, and I'll tell you why, because we are control freaks, plain
Yeah.
and simple. And I have been quoting this left and right lately because it came to me, like when you read the Bible and God just shows you something, right? And you're like, well, I never read that. And I know I've read that before, but I've never seen that. So Genesis 3:16, God's telling Eve that you're going to want to control your spouse.
Yes. And it's
You're
not.
literally going to want to, but you're not going to get to.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I was like, oh, what? So we are constantly trying to control. And when we let go of some of that control and we release some of that to God, it is beyond freeing. It feels so good. So I remind myself those 3 things my husband told me, and I look for my 3 things from God.
I love that. That is so true. We do want to control. I think honestly, that's why I pray on my knees as often as I can.
Mm-hmm.
It's a posture that reminds me of how small I am and that
Yes.
trying to control is a waste of time. Like God is so
Yes.
much bigger than me. I'm just spinning my wheels, If you could go back to the Trisha of, let's say, 2018,
Yes.
before the defining moment in your life, before God's call in your life, or maybe even at that exact moment when you heard God say you're going to write a book. Now that you're on this side of that, what would you say to her today?
Don't take 5 years to write the book.
Spoken like
Because
someone who knows.
yeah. Whew. Because ultimately, where I'm at today, I could have been at 5 years ago. I could have had, and and I've shared this with people, and I think it's really important that everybody experience this, and that is that we all have a story. We all have something in our lives that God has allowed us to go through for us to be able to use that to bring about more people to the kingdom. So now that I am where I am, I can say, okay, that my experience, as minor as it could be considered in the grand scheme of things, because there are lots of miracles. There are a lot of people out there who have really traumatic stories and horrible things that have happened to them that you think, why is this happening to these people? Why are they going through this? Because sooner or later, God's going to use that for good, because we all know what Romans 8:28 says, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wholeheartedly believe if you have a story, if you know this, you got that inside of you, this like, I got to get it out. Get it out. Share your story, because ultimately it may be an impact for not one person, but thousands of people to come to know Jesus. And
Yes.
isn't that what we're here for? That's the Great Commission.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really important to stay focused on those kind of things,
I absolutely love that. I agree with you 100%. I've wasted a lot of time. Just, I don't know why. I don't know why. And you're right, the Great Commission, that is why we're here. Or else we would have just been, I don't know, poofed the moment we believed, right? Like, why
Right.
weren't we
Right.
poofed? We have work to
Go
do.
on, bring us on up. Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
I've heard it, I don't remember who said it. Somebody famous and smarter than me said, your place of pain can become your place of rain. when
Yes.
you're willing to use it. And I think it is an act of love. I think it is the greatest way to love people when you open up in your vulnerability and share the
Yes.
hard things, the
Yes.
scary things, things that you
Yes.
might want to forget, because there are others who are experiencing those things or similar things, and they need to know they're not alone. They need to hear from somebody who's gone before them.
Yes.
But it is a surrender to do that. And I'm so thankful that you surrendered and that you
Thank
did
you.
that and you answered his
Yes.
call. So, two things. What resources would you share with the listeners if they are ready to step out of the boat or they've been kicked out of the boat? And then also, and I'll put all this in the show notes, how can they
Sure.
get in contact with you as an author, a
Sure.
speaker, all of it?
Good. Good. Okay. So the two avenues that I took that I would recommend, I joined Hope Media Network. They are a great organization that helps to establish Christian authors, podcasters, speakers. Um, they inspired me to get out of my box, get out of my comfort zone. And they focus on having oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Focus on your story. I mean, that is their big push is you have a story, let us help you share your story for the kingdom.
Mm.
So I learned a lot from them, and the other would be Propel Women with Christine Cane's organization. That has been very fruitful. But there are tons of, there's tons of different mentorships out there, and it can become a little overwhelming. I got to be honest, because I mean, every time I turn around, I'm like, "Ooh, there's one that looks fun. Ooh, that looks,"
Yeah.
and I mean, I can find myself, and I'm like, that is, um, you need to find something that is number one financially reasonable, because
Mhm.
some of them are really ridiculous. But when you find them, because there's a multitude of them, you got to pray about it and you got to
Mhm.
spend time on it. Really get to that place where you're like, okay, this is really, really where God's leading me. And it will be something that I would venture to say would be very easy once you get that call. Once you know, I mean, everything just falls into place because
Right.
that's how God works, right? How can you get a hold of me? I am on any podcast platform, Socks, Sisters Open to Christ Kindred Spirit. We drop once a week on Wednesday. And my book is available on Amazon. It's called, it's a hard one, Ephatha, Ephphatha, How to Be Open to God's Miracles. I could go on and on about how I came up with that name, but you probably don't have enough time. So, uh, um, and all social medias, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those good places. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Right.
So I'm on all those for sure. Yeah.
I love that. I am grateful that the Lord brought us together.
Me
He did
too.
this for not just today, but I think
No.
for a deeper purpose. I think you and I will get to know each other more. We are very
Oh,
like-minded,
I'm
very
so
like.
glad. I'm really looking forward to it. And you're going to come be on my podcast here next week. So that's pretty exciting too. You're going to get your socks, right? Yeah. We're going
Yes,
to have to,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah. You got your
absolutely.
Bible. We'll be bragging about that for a while too. Cause yeah, I'm excited about those. I was like, oh, look at that verse she picked. I'm not going to say it because you got to go listen, but
Well, yes,
good one.
that verse, it's interesting. I almost picked a few others, but
Yeah.
that verse is the very first verse I committed to memory. Before I was a believer, I was searching.
Yes.
And I don't memorize anything, Trisha. I mean, I don't,
I'm not really good at it
nothing.
either.
And
No.
then here I am. I think I was around 19 years old, and I find that verse. I did not know it's a popular verse.
Yeah.
It's a popular verse. I did not know that. I was raised Catholic, did not know the Bible. I was one of those
Yeah.
Catholics. I'm sure there are many who do know the
Mhm,
Bible very,
mhm.
very well. I
Yeah.
didn't. I'm just searching, like, Lord, just show me who you are. And I find that, and it spoke to me. And in that moment, it was in my head forever. And I came to
Yeah.
faith about
That's
5 years
awesome.
later. I know. So it has deep, deep meaning for me.
Wow.
And I'm so excited that
Yeah. That
we
was a good one.
stand.
It's definitely one of my top 10s. So it was
Yeah.
a really good one. Yeah, I remember as a young child, and I had a Bible study that I got invited to, and I was a churchgoer. I was raised Southern Baptist in the South, and we went to church, but I didn't memorize verses. And so we're in this little Bible study group, and the only verse I really knew was John 3:16, right? I mean, because everybody John 3:16.
Right.
So the teacher says, "Okay, I'd like everybody to share their favorite Bible verse, even if it's John 3:16." I'm like, that's the only one I know. You already just, how can I go sharing that one now? Like, you just said, no, even if it's only John 3:16.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I completely relate to not being able. I literally have 2 Bible verses tattooed on me, and I still have to look them up. You know what I'm saying? I still will on occasion be like, I might get this wrong, even though it's on here.
Yeah.
My husband's like, you should have just had the whole thing written out on you. And I was like, that probably would have been wiser than going, he flies with the eagles and
Isaiah. Yes.
40:31.
Yes. Yes. I have a hat, but I couldn't tell you it was 40:31, even though it says Isaiah 40:30. Okay, so yes.
Right.
Yes.
The soaring eagle walking and running. Yes. Yeah, that one. That would be and I love that verse. It's a great verse, but yeah, I was like, I'm terrible with remembering verses too. With that traumatic brain injury, it just added a whole nother level too. I'm like, your name is what?
One more time.
Yeah.
This has been so much fun. I absolutely loved today. I want to say thank you so much. I know there are women listening and they're being ignited, and they're going to look up those resources, and they're going to look up with you and connect with you. Awesome. So thank you again. And I'm excited for next week being on.
Me too. I can't wait.
I know.
It'll be awesome.
It's going to be fun.
For sure. So, all right. Well, I'll see you next week.
Yes. Yes. Sounds good.